Welcome to the Bitter to Better podcast. Hopefully, my sound is okay because there has been a big change for a moment. There's been an unexpected change to the podcast episode today. First of all, it is Monday, October 13th. And so a podcast episode should have come out 5 a.m. Eastern Time. It is not out yet. It is currently 11:52 a.m. Eastern Time, but I am in Phoenix, Arizona, in which it is 8:53 a.m., and I am traveling, and so this podcast episode um is just happening. Originally today was going to be the release of the first Mom Moments episode, but I didn't get to record that conversation yet, and so it had to be rescheduled. Um I so um I had planned to record an episode to replace that episode, and I didn't get around to it before traveling, and so it was a hectic week, and so here I am. So I'm recording this episode right now, and then I'm going to pretty much immediately upload it, and that will be this Monday's episode, and then I have, episodes scheduled from there. So that's what's going on. Welcome. This episode is about things you cannot avoid when dating. And so I'm inspired to do this episode by work with women around their hesitations for getting into the dating world, their concerns, their worries. And it and in talking with women and having my own experiences in dating, it has allowed me to really it has pushed me to, I think, make some firm statements on the dating process that I've been hesitant to make because I'm like, oh, I don't wanna push people away or scare people away from the process, but the reality is, if you want, a certain companionship in your life, and various other things that may come with partnering with someone, then dating is the path to doing that. Just like if you want to make money, getting a job or selling something or creating something, is the path to doing that. Just like if you want good health, exercising and eating well and, going to your doctor's appointments are the path to getting there, right? So there are things that we have to do as part of the process to meeting the goals that we want. And so when we're talking about partnering with a partner who is a good fit for you and you are a good fit for them, then dating is really the path to doing that because as I always say, dating is romantic interviewing. So you have to date. Um and so the reality is that there are certain things then that you don't get to avoid if you're going to date, just like there are certain things you don't get to avoid if you're going to have a job. Like someone's going to expect you to show up somewhere at a certain time or to deliver a certain product or service in a certain way or by a certain time. Um, you know, if you want, good health, you are going to have to move your body, maybe sometimes when you don't want to, in ways you don't want to. You're going to have to eat things that maybe you'd have other preferences in what you would eat, stuff like that, right? So here we are. So with that, there are just there are a few that come to mind immediately for me of like these things you don't get to avoid, and probably because they're some of the most common things that come up from people when I'm talking to them about dating. So, I would say the first thing that you don't by the way, I'm in, I'm in Josh's grandmother's backyard here in Arizona, so there's wind chimes and, like, some lovely landscaping going on, and I'm on the backyard swing right now. It's a lovely sunny day here in Phoenix. But the first thing you don't get to avoid when dating is engaging with strangers, meaning that every person you meet in the dating process will initially be a stranger to you. And that seems obvious. And also, um, it's also interesting to me when people are like, but new people. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you are going to make friends in life, if you're going to enter relationships in life, if you're going to um, work a job or you have to work with coworkers, then you're going to be engaging with strangers, right? It's a common part of most of our lives. So I say this though to like help give perspective on the fact that What shouldn't, you know, hinder you from dating is the idea that, oh, I have to meet new people. Yes. Yes, you do. You don't get to avoid engaging with strangers if you're going to date. So just, knowing that and accepting that can help you walk into it with maybe more mental preparation. Because of course, right, what comes up for us when we think about engaging with strangers, it may be, I don't, this person doesn't know me. I don't want to be judged. I don't want, I want to maybe look and be and behave my best because that, this is their first impression of me or they don't know me well. And yes, absolutely. So that means if I know that I'm going to have to engage with strangers when I'm dating, then I am going to do my best to put my best foot forward. And so I'm going to need to prepare myself to do the things that are going to allow me to do that. Um, and we'll talk a little more about this in one of the next points that I'll bring up soon. Another thing, sorry, I'm recovering from a sinus infection. So, another thing is you don't get to avoid meeting crappy, sucky people, men, people who, guys who you engage with who don't act right. You don't get to avoid that for the most part. I mean, I guess if you're super lucky, you never run into those guys while dating, but most of us aren't super lucky when it comes to that. And so the reality is, yes, you're going to meet some assholes. You're going to meet some losers. You're going to meet some guys who you're like, I can't believe he said or did that or behaved in that way. You should set your expectations appropriately that you're going to run into them. But don't let that be a reason you don't date because in that case, they win. Like, don't cut yourself off from the potential of great companionship or just enjoyable experiences because of the behavior of some people who don't know how to act right. Because again, as being a human in this life, in this world, you don't get through life not meeting some people who you rather not be around. And in this case, in the dating process, you can cut them off. You should cut them off. And pretty easily, especially if it's early on in the dating process with this person, which is a major reason why I'm always saying we need to work on our vetting skills and vetting efficiently because you should not be out here continually engaging with the same guy who isn't behaving. That's a bad idea, right? So you don't get to avoid meeting misbehaving men when dating. So instead, how do you deal with that? You deal with that by having good vetting skills and knowing when you're like, hey, thanks for the date, but no thank you. Your behavior was inappropriate. If it's something that you feel is worth, mentioning to him, give him some feedback. Or it's just, oh, thanks. Appreciate the date. Whether it's our values on the line or we don't have some of the same goals, or we're not looking for the same things, whatever it is. All right, bye. That's it. That's it. But you're not going to control whether people behave or not. You don't get to do that. Another thing you don't get to do, or another thing you don't get to avoid while dating, is the potential for misalignment of preferences between you and your dating partners. Right, that's part of why you're dating. You're romantic interviewing. So just like an HR manager, interviewing potential, job candidates. Um, do you do the interview to see like, are we aligned on these things? Are you aligned on doing the duties that we want for this job? Are we aligned on what you'll get paid? Are we aligned on um various, ideas or logistics? Like, are you able, we need you here at 8 a.m. Is that something you're able to do? We need you to stay here until 5 p.m. Is that something you're able to do? All of these things. And then, you as the job candidate, you have your preferences and needs. So, the work culture or, what's our lunch break, stuff like that, right? So same thing with romantic interviewing, aka dating. Um, you have your preferences and your deal breakers. That person has their preferences and their deal breakers, and those things may or may not align. And that is a part of the process. Don't let the potential for misaligned preferences stop you from dating because it's highly likely. Like I always say, like everyone is not the one. statistically speaking, every person you date cannot be the one. If you're looking for a one person to join with, everybody's not going to be that one. So yeah, you're going to go on dates with people and realize that they don't want what you want. You don't want what they want, whatever. And that is why you date, so that you can ask questions and get to know each other and then vet people in or out of your dating pool, right? Another thing you don't get to avoid is the potential to need to make changes about yourself, your behavior, or your life circumstances, right? Like you may go into the dating process and notice things or get feedback from people you're dating, from guys you're dating, and um, realize there are things that you would like to shift, you know? And I have like my philosophy on this idea of making changes about ourselves, our physical appearance, our life circumstances, our behavior, whatever, is there are things like you need to do some self-assessment and some self-reflection on where you stand on any given thing that you could potentially change about yourself. So what I mean is there are things that that you yourself are not content with about yourself or your life, your behavior, your circumstances. And therefore those are things that you are intrinsically motivated to want to change, right? There's that bucket. There's another bucket of things that someone would like you to change about yourself, your life, your circumstances, your behavior. Okay? So then you look at that bucket and you make some decisions. Is this something that I am interested in, happy to, willing to, think should be changed about myself or my life? Or is this something that I don't think should be changed or I don't want to change, right? And then you go from there. So what I'm saying is they're the things that you work to change because you have already decided you want to change them. Then there are the things that other people have, and in this case, we'll say dating partners, or well, even other people in your life in regards to dating, they may bring up to you and say, well, if you did this or you did that, then you look at those things and you say, okay, here are the things that yeah, they're right. I could change those things. I want to try it and let's see how it goes. Then great. Make efforts to change those things. But there might be some of those things where you're like, no, I like this about myself, or this is something that is not changeable in my life. Then those things they stay the same. But that does mean then you are going to want to intentionally seek out dating people who are okay with those things that you are not willing to or cannot change. A prime example would be if you have kids, you're not changing that reality. So you don't want to be out here dating and giving too much time to a guy who doesn't want to date someone who has kids or doesn't want to be in a step parenting role in the future, right? That doesn't make sense. And that's not a changeable circumstance for you. So I'm not going to date or continue to date you. You might end up on a first or second date with someone who you really like, who you find out that's the case, but you need to vet them out then because that makes no sense for you, right? So, um, but then there might be things that you have decided, yeah, you do want to change about yourself. Maybe you want to have more freedom with your time. Maybe you want to make more money. Maybe you want to be in a different living situation. Maybe you want to change something about your health or something about your physical appearance. Any of these things, right? Then you, in the dating process, are very much put in a position to put effort into changing those things so that as you are dating guys, you are showing up as the self and the person you want to be. And I want to be very clear here. Some people will hold off on dating completely until they feel like they've fixed or changed all these things about themselves. Um, and I'm not suggesting that either, right? We are all humans who are evolving in evolution and we never get it done like our entire lives. There are things you're changing or shifting about yourself, your life, your circumstances, your behaviors. You go through different phases in life. If you have young kids, you're going to then have, older kids and you're going to have adult kids. Like your life, the phases of your life shift and inevitably your lifestyle and the things you need and want shift, right? So what I'm saying is we as humans are always all evolving. So where someone met you now versus where they meet you and see you 10 years, 20, 30 years from now should shift and change in certain ways. But are you being intentional along the way about those things shifting and changing in the ways that you want and need for the parts that are within your control, right? So what I'm saying here is you it can be helpful if there are a lot of things that you're wanting to change about yourself or your life. It can be very helpful for you to identify the first few that absolutely need to shift in some way in order for you to comfortably engage with other people, if that makes sense. Because there may be 15 other things that, yeah, you're going to be working on, but as you're getting to know people, as you're living your life. Because if you wait until everything is perfect, good luck. It's not happening because I don't even know what perfection is, honestly. Right. So I'm saying that if you happen to be in a position where you're like, yeah, I'm not happy about this, and this in my life, then don't overdo it in terms of, well, then I can't date anyone or be dating until these things are done. No, that's not how it works. You do want to be out there dating and talking to people and getting to know them and having them get to know you while you are working on these things. And what you might get is feedback from people, from guys, from people in your life who that might help you even prioritize some of the things you want to change about yourself or your circumstances or your behavior, right? If you have people like, well, yeah, I don't know, whatever. When you're talking, you like monopolize the conversation all the time. That's a behavioral thing, right? You might be like, oh, I'm going to be more aware of that and work on that. So when I'm on dates, I'm not, overdoing it. Whatever. That's one random example. There are many. There are many examples, right? Some people might notice, like, hey, yeah, you tend to like be really, really quick to just cut guys out without, any consideration of, what's going on for them or their circumstance. For example, maybe that person is working on things and goals for themselves, right? And you're like, well, that doesn't match my preference, right? Well, maybe it doesn't match a preference you have, but if it's not a deal breaker item, is there room there to continue to talk to this person and get to know them, right? And this is where I say it's nuanced and balanced and tricky because I know I just also said don't give your time too much of your time to somebody and vet them out efficiently. Yes, when you know that they're not checking certain deal breakers or their behavior is just completely inappropriate or unacceptable. These are where it takes a bit more of a tailored specific approach in terms of what your exact circumstances are with this exact person. I want to be clear, right? There are definitely those questions where you're surveying the crowd and your friends, and you're like, okay, there's this, but then there's this. So I'm not saying it's always just like this clear, clean cut thing around across the board, but it does start with you knowing your preferences and needs and desires, and then weighing those against what that person's bringing. But I digress a little. My point here is there are things that all of us can shift and change, but we want to also be doing it for the right reasons. You need to check in with yourself on the things that you think are worth shifting and changing about yourself and your life so that you can then go out and date people who match that, who want that. And so that you're not wasting your time with people who don't want the things that you are offering or that you want. If that makes sense, right? Like let's not again, the person doesn't want kids or want to be involved with kids and you have kids. Well, okay, thanks, no thanks. The last thing I would talk about that you don't get to avoid when dating is disappointment and frustration for kind of all these reasons that I listed above. Um, particularly that whole part of not being able to control others' behavior, right? So you're going to meet guys who you don't enjoy talking to or being around or who whatever, someone ghosts you or just does some inappropriate behavior. You're gonna experience disappointment and frustration around that, annoyance, maybe even anger or sadness. Um, one of my things is I always say like I prefer disappointment over heartbreak, which is to say, if I'm dating somebody and they are showing behavior or having, have certain life circumstances things about themselves that really are not aligning with what I want or I'm looking for, it's better for me to vet them out earlier on and experience the disappointment of that thing not working out rather than continuing to date them and get emotionally attached and potentially experience heartbreak over that thing ending, whether I end it or they end it. My point is that the more we engage with someone, maybe you're enjoying their time, right, in their company, the more emotionally attached we'll be getting, and if that thing ends, it's more likely for it to be sadness and heartbreak that comes from it than just earlier on it being disappointing that we had to end things. So the reality is, if you're dating people, most of those dates are not going to move into a relationship. So there very well may be some disappointment on you needing to end it or them choosing to end it with you. Better that the disappointment or frustration or annoyance is felt than anger and heartbreak and sadness, although that might absolutely be something that happens. those stronger emotions might absolutely be something you experience. But generally speaking, you're working on your dating skills, your vetting skills, so that you know when to kind of cut the ties. Or if someone else cuts the ties, you can be like, yeah, I get it. I really had a good time with them. It's disappointing, but I see where we don't align in some of our preferences and deal breakers. So it makes sense. I'm disappointed, but hey, I'm still continuing to date. I have my roster going. I'm casually dating. I'm rotationally dating. I'm dating like a man. Um, and so there are other people for me to romantically interview. And so the disappointment is there, but it's not the end all and be all. It's not, heartbreaking. Okay. So my reasons for wanting to really acknowledge the things that you don't get to avoid when dating is to help set realistic expectations for dating, to help reduce the likelihood of heartbreak, and to just lean into the realities of some inconvenient truths of the dating process. But anything that's worth doing or having oftentimes comes with challenges and sacrifices. And if you feel that companionship in your life is worth having, healthy companionship, happy companionship is worth having, then these are some of the challenges that you are going to face in the process. So let's have realistic expectations about it so that we can do the things that are within our control to limit or reduce some of these inconveniences and to cope with them. All right, that's all. Wait, that's not all. Well, no, I was going to say by the time this episode comes out, but it's coming out like now, my email list would be available. There's a tech issue, so, like, it's my email list is set up, but the emails aren't going out, so we're still working on it, so, we'll come back to that. Anyway, that's been it for today. Silly me. Something that I need to start remembering to add to every episode is where you can find me, follow me, engage with me, and eventually join my dating program. So, obviously, wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast, YouTube is kind of the new place that I've been putting the podcast because it now has this visual element. So definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tracy. That's Tracie. And also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. The Coach Tracy are my tags, are my handles there, I believe. Um, and um, and my website is coachtracie.life. So that's COACHTRACIE.LIFE. That is where you'll be able to read about my upcoming dating program that's launching in January. That's where you'll be able to join my email list when it's working properly. So honestly, don't do that just yet. And that's where you'll ultimately be able to find, all the services and products that I offer. So, but right now, subscribing on YouTube and following me on Instagram and TikTok are really the key ways to stay in touch and keep up with everything. All right, that's all.